In life, people are looking for, how do I make a life? How do I make a living? How do I make a career? How do I make retirement? See, it doesn't matter what time of day or night I attempt to do an audio cast, there is always somebody monkeying in. Someone trying to get involved in what I'm doing. I'm in the middle of the morning. There should be no noise going on, and yet above me is a helicopter making a hell of a lot of noise. A few minutes ago, my audiocast was interrupted by an obnoxious company called The Republic that openly are literally at my beck and call every morning I wake up. At least that's how it feels. Every time I sit myself down to do something for me, one of their trucks comes barreling through with noise and literally picks up one trash can and goes. You see, it's not about them doing their actual route, it's about them interfering with the man's life. As a part of a mobbing task force, I believe, that a religious cop has put into place. What a lie he's told himself. Now, if I say this, it's an opinion. I'm exercising my First Amendment rights. I also have the right to exercise my Second Amendment rights, which is to defend myself when I'm feeling threatened by cars that don't belong anywhere on my path and are taking far too long to turn the corner. You see, if a person is on a normal path, they go up, they stop, they move on. They don't go up, stop, and sit there for a while, as if they're stalking or if they're planning on hitting someone with their vehicle, or if they're completely lost, they usually roll down the window and say, "Excuse me, do you mind if I ask you a question? I'm trying to find a particular place." Sometimes people who are lost don't ever ask anyone for help, and they don't like to be given help because they want to be in control and in power, and that's perfectly fine. But when you're lost, you can't be found if you don't let people know you're lost. Now, when a man is not lost, there are other people who want to insinuate that they're lost. I have on occasion misjudged a situation where I thought that a family was not sure what they should be doing. So I have sometimes been a bit vocal in my promotion of the local restaurants that are loving and kind to me in my life to try to support their initiatives of staying in business during this health crisis time when many restaurants have closed. I'm absolutely, utterly appalled that Pizza Hut has looked like they're closed. Now, if they're just remodeling, wonderful. But I don't think so, because the sign for Pizza Hut is completely down, and I sit there and think, what absolute moron would take down prime real estate for their company like that? Not only is it one of the best pizza places in town in terms of the quality of its dough, the goodness of its people, etc., I suppose, but the reality is that the campus is still a campus. College students still eat pizza. And if we're trying to support the local businesses, by all means, pull out. But there's always another place people get pizza is true. But people here are spending thousands of dollars a month on luxury item cars that they don't really need. And I personally think this campus should implement what my campus did long ago, which said, if you're a freshman or sophomore, you do not have the right to have a vehicle on campus. They actually could put that in place. It was to reduce traffic. It was to keep people using the buses systems. It was to keep students kind of faithful to walking and staying in good shape and good health and not letting them get overweight, I suppose, despite the fact that everybody puts on the freshman 10 because the food we eat is a lot and we're trying to keep energy and we get served really fatty foods in cafeterias. Now, probably today they're doing better at planning diets and better at things, but the greatness about a place like a cafeteria is you can continue to eat if you're still hungry, and that's good for growing men and women who do need to eat. But the truth I'm really talking about is, if a person is lost, how are they to be found? And who is to find them? You see, when the Lord was lost, he was found by his own Father. His own loving Father prepared him for the time ahead. Do you remember that he went to pray upon the mount? And I don't know all the names, but I think it was Mount Sinai, but I'm not perfect in the Bible literature, as one of my late siblings used to be able to quote verse without a problem. She had a mind for that. She literally had a musical mind that could take in information in ways that most people couldn't. She could devour a book, a full book of several hundred pages, within an hour. That's how fast she could read. It was amazing. She can also play the piano and did things like this, but she could also text and drive, which scared the hell out of me because it was inappropriate, immoral, illegal to put other people at risk with that skill, despite how good you might be. Now, the text-to-speech items on our phone make it a lot easier, but they also interfere with our rights to say things the way we want to. They often change the words we're using. They often change the spellings after we've checked it and it looks right, and then we go and hit send and we find that the damn computer has changed our words, not in a way we wanted. It makes us look stupid in business professional settings. It makes us look bad in some social situations, and frankly, there's always someone who lies about the right to shut someone's technology off completely. You see, law enforcement doesn't have to do things lawfully. This is what the blue line is about. When I talk about the blue line, we have to look to the senators like Kamala Harris that are allegedly protecting our rights. And when I say allegedly, I see her on the line touting the black community all the time. But I have to tell you, in my experience in Champaign, I have only met one or two young professionals who have been loving and kind to my particular situation. Most have either mocked me or they're a part of the similar situation in poverty, looking for a free ride. I am never looking for a free ride. I do let the Lord lead me to meals, and it's amazing, utterly amazing, how many meals I've received out of the loving kindness of God. Not necessarily the people all the time. Sometimes it's the rich person who has lied, who has lost their rights to a meal. Sometimes it is a Peter to Paul situation, if you know that saying that my mother used to say, of robbing Peter to pay Paul, was what my father used to talk about when he would manage bills when they were struggling with many children, many mouths to feed, and not enough income on his company salary. But the truth is that people do learn to manage. I'm appalled at how our politicians are being attacked for not giving up every single right that a person has to their responsibilities. What I mean by this is that I get tired of seeing politicians wasting the airwaves of Twitter, LinkedIn, and other things, complaining about how our president is running things, complaining about how people who have the job and authority and responsibility to make decisions are doing things. And openly, I've done those things in my own past, sure. But openly, it's because I had different information. Not because I thought some particular subset of the community should get a free ride. Students do not get a free ride out of their responsibilities to pay for their education. I certainly never did. Students do not get the immoral right to continue to steal from people in the night. That is an immoral thing that we are allowing and enabling, and that law enforcement officers are not paying attention to. We also have plenty of people who are here illegally, immorally, and staying long after their programs are finished because no one is escorting them back to the borders. No one is putting them on a plane from the international programs that allow them here. Isn't that odd? We let people come in and then we expect them to just pick up and go. But many are looking for jobs in America, and if they can land one with a visa, then all the power to them. Then they look for a marriage partner who's American, and then voila, we have a fuller country than we did before. We also have a subset of people that got here somewhat immorally. Because if they were in their home country, they'd be utilizing their skill sets they learned here to improve their own country situations. It's not immoral for me to say that. It is appropriate for me to say that maybe, just maybe, God is not pleased with what's going on in the world. We have this virus that's lurking about. How much of it is real, we can't say because news has been tainted for so long now in terms of politicians and the political right in one part of the news group and the political left in the other part of the news group that we never know exactly what's precisely true. We don't have enough information about the polls in terms of how many people did you actually poll to get that percentage and that numbers, and that's the truth of laziness in journalism. I talked to a journalist here locally long ago about poverty. Has she ever come back to talk with me again? Not 1 second. You'd think being Hispanic in background she'd be interested, but she was on the beat of sports. Sure, everybody's interested in sports until we no longer have a sports team to follow. Then we have to find new subset stories. The beauty of some of the young reporters here is that they want to take my photograph, and that's great because it proves that some monster, like a bankier employee, has been cutting my beard in the night, without my consent, without my permission, and that man is always showing up on my path. He tried to give me money one time, and I was grateful because I needed food for the morning, and $2 allowed me to pay for a meal. But the truth is, I didn't want any more money, and he tried to give me money again, and then he acted insulted as if he would never offer me again. I was like, I didn't ask to become your stepchild. I'm not the ugly red-headed kid that you think I need to be. It was sort of an immoral way that he approached me. It was only the second time we had met. But nowadays he kind of likes to wave at me, and I realize that men need liaisons, they need contacts, they need people to talk to. But the problem is that when a man is being monkeyed with in the middle of the night, and he can't fully tell who it is, he's going to put himself in front of person of interest cameras to capture the unlawful people. The only question is, are the unlawful people able to capture themselves? Or are they so stupid that they think they're above the law? We have laws in this world, it's true. But we also have opportunities to adjust our lives based on laws. And when a man does that lawfully and has the federal government backing him, then no law officer has the right to monkey with those records. And that's been a problem in Indiana and Illinois, that law officers are trying very hard to ruin a man's federal right to be himself. And they've done so far, because every time I try to go in someplace to create a new liaison, then all of a sudden some shitbag is telling me that they can't help me anymore. Why is that? Do they ever tell me why? No. Because someone went in and disparaged my name. There is a black family that is obviously a family because they all look alike, and they're running around doing things. They look like they're students, but I don't think so. The one man wears a pajama suit, he sleeps down by the bank here building, and he's left to do so. It's fine. But he's got to be cold. It's fucking cold here. In the middle of the night. Now, when a man like me swears, it's not impertinent. It's to get people who don't love God to pay attention. That people who love God do sometimes swear. We get passionate about our lives. We want to know we are in charge of our own life and our own property, our own paperwork. And yet there are people who are unlawful who think they have the right to change our paperwork. They have the right to mark us mentally unwell. They have the right to monkey with our medical records. They have the right to tell stories about our lives that screw us out of our mental health or our medical health. And frankly, I've had siblings that done that. They thought they had the right to comment about my medical health to some fucking Muslim doctor who fucked me out of my rights. Then another one did the same. Do you know how many people I've been fucking put in front of without my consent who are Muslim doctors? And I want to know who the fuck gave them the right to be here in the first place? And who the fuck gave them the right to talk about my medical condition when they are not an expert in my situation at all? But somehow they get a right to put a medical record? This is what the monstrous politicians should be paying attention to. That we have people here either immorally, illegally, or unlawfully ruining our records. We have Mexicans who come in and just put up a long crew, and they go about their business, and no officer pulls them over and say, hey, let me see your green card. They don't speak a lick of English, and yet they're expected to be American citizens? What are we doing, creating a little Havana? I'm sorry, but according to American citizenship books that I have, they have to know how to speak English. They have to pass some tests. But that's not happening anymore. Our borders are not safe, it's true. Our people are not safe, it's true. People are unlawfully coming here, staying here, taking over roles in other people's lives, taking over their house. They're squatting in people's places. Now, I'm a bit of a squatter, but I have permission to squat. I squat at a place that openly, actively helps me. They let me do laundry on occasion. They let me have water when I need it. And they sometimes let me use the toilet. Although recently they've changed the policy on that, which means I've got to go to my creative ways, the outdoor camping ways of taking a crap in the middle of the morning. I'd like to see some law officer play my life out. I'd really like to see a law officer in this community be homeless for the next year and see how he survives without using anything in his law enforcement training book to do so. I challenge them to walk as much as I do. You see, you can't see things if you're not paying attention, but a visual mind like mine picks up cues. Do you understand that I have literally picked up every stitch of clothing that the woman I loved wore when she was with me on special occasions and business occasions and other occasions? Literally everything except that white shirt. That white shirt that nearly put me in my grave. And I mean it. I almost had a heart attack. She looked so beautiful in that shirt, I could have died. She also knows the outfit she wore that made me just fall head over heels in love with her. But it's not about the outfit, it was about the mind that I got to talk to in a car ride that I wished was just the two of us the whole time. The truth is, I couldn't make that happen. I was in the middle of something with someone else, and I have to honor my own spouse. The truth is, it doesn't matter how God plays out in people's lives. The truth is that God can say, look, you're in the wrong relationship. And he can pull people out of relationships easily enough. I was pulled from mine, she was pulled from hers, although she went kicking and screaming like a fool, and that's on me, in my opinion, to say. And I can say these things because I observed it. I observed it in paperwork alone. You see, when a man says he'll call, he usually does, until he's being berated by the individual he's longing to call. Berated for something he's never done. I got accused of all sorts of things by this woman. That I'd somehow made her some sort of a social media thing, or I put her in some sort of dating website. I'm sorry, I don't do shit like that. I don't have time, I don't know how, and I hate those dating sites. Because they always try and pair you with someone you would never in a million years want to fuck. And I apologize for saying it that way, but we do have our own interest in visual communication, but the truth is it's not about that. It's about that I'm a small person. I have lost 18 inches now off my waist, and I don't want to be smashed by a 400-pound girl. I'm sorry, I'm just not interested. You're not protecting the house that the Lord gave you, so why should I want to do that with you? Now, when I say this, men are going to be cheering, women are going to be appalled, but that's okay. I've come a long way, baby, in my own health care, because I'm in charge of it most of the time. But when someone else thinks they've got rights to my body, I want to say, who the fuck gave it to you? The Lord is my shepherd. He takes me to food when I need it. I had a loving boy just feed me last night. The Lord just said, sit still. Now go. Now do this. And a boy gave me a meal, which I'm grateful for. It was a little rough to eat, but I'm grateful for it. And the Lord wants them to know they need to stop overkneading their dough, but that's okay. You see, you can't keep a business going if you don't pay attention to what dough tastes like. In life, we have moments of time to tell people honestly how much we value them, and I so appreciate this little shop that I'll later talk about. They have been loving, kind, and very helpful to a man like me. They have made me feel welcome and enfolded despite the fact that I'm impoverished right now. And that is a gift. There are places that are supposed to do that, and they shit all over us with police officers. They fuck us out of our privacy rights. They gossip like a dickens. They let people in from other communities to consume the food that's really supposed to be for the local constituents, although they say anyone's welcome, and that's true. But when those people are obnoxious as hell, when they violate our rights, when they violate our privacy, when they're not educated on how to behave, it's annoying as hell. I won't go into that anymore because God is leading me there for a moment. I don't know why, but that's okay. The truth is, we have authentic journalists in this world. The Barbara Walters of the world are gone. Her show, The View, is obnoxious as hell. Those women talk over each other all the time. They're allegedly always in fights and stupid things. And I just want to say, this is not how we conduct ourselves in America. This is why we have little shit people who are like this guy who wanted to take a photograph of his food truck. And he just crapped all over me for wanting to take a photograph of his food truck. And I thought, if you don't want people to know you've got a business, then don't advertise. It's that simple. You see, I had a business, but I didn't have to advertise a lot because my people knew where to look for my business. That portal that I used for the longest time provided me with clients all the time. The university that I also worked and served at as an educator, as a trainer of the Japanese language, also allowed me the right to continue teaching people who came to my initial program. They thought it was more than fair than reasonable that if someone wanted to continue on with me as their instructor, they could. And you know what? Most of them did. And it provided me and my family a life. I don't have to prove my language skill to any Japanese person, because I can say to them, go ahead, teach the language right now. You see, just because you can speak a language doesn't mean you can teach a language. And here's what often happened, even with the guests in my particular program who came in to teach tea ceremony and other things, they would get asked questions by our students in English, and they would say, I don't know how to explain that. Ask him. And I was the one who was able to explain it. You see, my Japanese language library is huge and vast, but I'm pretty sure that the people in my storage unit have already stolen half the books, or someone else did, and openly, that's the lie that people tell themselves. That these law officers drive around the community and they don't pay attention to the places that hold our wares, that hold our goods at all. They sit in parking lots all day long and get paid, what, 10 to 20 bucks an hour to do it? What for? Go to the places that hold our property, pay attention, and make sure that families are not looting every single storage unit just because they know how to pick a lock. And openly, when I was downtown Indianapolis, I had the plates of the people that I thought had way too many storage units in life and that were looting, because if they're really that much of a stockpiler, if they're an antique, are great. But if they're not, then they're looting everybody's property, and no one will know until it's too late. In life, we have moments of time to say, stop monkeying in people's lives. Show up for people that you need to show up for, because there's no way out of it in front of the Lord. You see, it doesn't matter what all these people tell you. You're not responsible, you're not liable, we can take this, we can do that to him, we can do all this under the law. But when it comes to the end of the day, when it comes to the end of your life, when it comes to whenever God decides to call your little ass home, either in a dream or in other factors, you are liable to him for what you do. And if you think you're going to get a pass out of hell because you think you're a Christian, you're out of your mind. If you monkeyed with someone's life, if you stole from the house of God, and let's be clear what that means. Stealing from the house of God means you actually physically stole something, physically, from another human being. You see, the Lord is the provider of people's provisions. It says so clearly in the Bible. So what that means is if you've stolen something from someone, if you've monkeyed with their property, if you've folded their papers, if you've ripped them, if you've done anything immoral like that at all, you are likely to end up in hell because you have violated God's laws. You have violated the thou shalt not steal law of the Bible. You've also violated the law that I am your Lord your God, and you'll have no one above me. And that is something that you are trying to do. You are trying to be a God in someone's life, be a powerhouse that you are not allowed to be, and you have failed to submit yourself not only to God, but to the man or woman who is your spouse in life. Because I guarantee if you've chosen correctly, they would not want you doing anything like that. In the name of Jesus we go, is what people say. Really? I'd like to see that, because I've got frostbite in my fingertips because too many Christians were so busy feeding hundreds of people that they could have just sent a check to provide them their own ability to go shopping for food, instead of allowing a man into a building that has hundreds of rooms not being used, lounges that could hold a man from being cold in the night. And companies that are managing properties are lying to themselves about their need of so many fucking vehicles. I have never in my life seen so many worthless people. Is not true. Never in my life have I seen such a waste of money in vehicles and property and people that aren't lawfully here. How do we know that? Because I can't speak a lick of English. It's not about a thick accent, because my late wife had a thick accent. My son didn't have one because he learned so much younger. But the truth is that in life we can tell who is legitimate and who is not. Those who are legitimate and want to be legitimate work their butts off to improve their language skills, become more and more Americanized, and understand what our rules are. That you don't invade someone's house in the middle of the night. You don't peer through windows. You don't peek over shower curtains. You don't do any of that to put your little agenda forward. And that's the truth. In the Lord's name we go, is what I often say. And maybe this particular podcast makes sense to some people. Maybe it doesn't make sense to me. But the truth is, it's the Lord's wish for it to be out there for those who will listen, to be understanding that their sin is going to put them in hell. Their sin of thinking that they are in control of everyone's lives through their inappropriateness, through their empowerment, or through their little tantrums and mini dramas that they create on other people's lives, trying to be in power and in control. And the truth is, you've probably been lied to the whole time by the people around you about what to do. Did you ever get on your knees before the Lord and say, Lord, what should I do here? How should I handle this situation? Am I doing the right thing? Have you checked yourself against the good book? Because nowhere in the good book does it say, thou shalt steal. Nowhere in the book does it say, thou shalt ruin a man's name. Nowhere in the book does it say, thou shalt interfere with someone's medical rights and mental health rights. Nowhere in the good book does it say you have the right to promote one culture of diversity over another. Kamala Harris. You could have been president, but you screwed yourself by not listening to God. In Jesus' name we go. And I have an opinion, and I'm going to say it as a journalist, as a reporter, as someone who lives in the streets and gets that the community is becoming more belligerent than intelligent. Thanks for listening.